everybody, Max here with Traders in the Zone, and today I'm joined by Ricardo, and what we are going to do is figure out how the average people in cryptocurrency make a living. So Ricardo, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Hello, my name is Ricardo Carrera. As you know, I met Max here through crypto.
Yeah, so what do you do for a living, and what's your background in?
Okay. Wow, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but if we're gonna get into that, so my background is in advertising, later automotive. So I started in advertising. From that, I transitioned into the automotive industry, and I spent the last 15 years in the automotive industry. And now I switched over to the to the financial industry with investments and all that fun stuff.
And did you hear about cryptocurrency before you got into finance, or how did you hear about it?
So my first knowledge of knowing about crypto came through a friend who had mentioned cryptocurrency. He mentioned Bitcoin. He's like, "Hey, you should buy now. It's like $50, you know." Way back in the day, like way back in the beginning. I wish I would have bought then, right?
Yeah.
But back then, it was a lot more inaccessible, and I didn't really have very many people around me who could kind of guide me through the process. So I was kind of like, all right, well, you know, I have no idea how to do this, and I don't know where to even start. So I just kind of just let it go, and eventually, you know, you start hearing about, you know, the last bull run, all of a sudden goes like, oh, you know, 15, 16, 17, 19,000. I'm like, oh, damn, you know, I missed the boat. And then I never really thought about it again for a while because, well, like many people, I'm like, well, I already missed the boat on that one, you know, which was kind of a mistake. But
a lot of people don't understand that we are still so early into the cryptocurrency adoption. People keep hearing about it. I mean, it's insane. And we'll put up a curve on the screen here about the adoption phases. Yeah. And I mean, people are still saying we're only between 4 and 8% total adoption, depending on the age range.
Yeah, but I think it has more to do with the fact that people are not educated to look at it from that perspective. You know, a lot of people see it as a silver bullet, if you may, to kind of like, oh, I'm gonna get rich quick with this
magic internet money.
Yeah, magic internet money. I'm gonna buy it cheap, and like, you know, within like 2 weeks, I'm gonna be a millionaire. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You know, and it stems from a lack of financial education that, you know, is just general in people, because I mean, my best example is me. You know, my dad passed away right as I was close to graduating college, and my dad would have been the most ideal person to teach me about, you know, how to manage my money. But unfortunately, after I started working, I really didn't have anybody in my family or anybody related to me or any friend to kind of really tell me, it's like, hey, you know, you should start considering like doing these kind of things. So, you know, everything I've learned, I've had to learn on my own, and it's taken me a lot longer, and I wish somebody would have educated me on finances a lot earlier.
Because who do you go to for your information, whether it be financial advice or cryptocurrency information, just learning?
I mean, most of what I learn these days is now because I've been in this space, you know, for a significant time, I have a better idea of, you know, what resources to go to find whatever information I'm looking for. You know, you have your typical talking heads, but you also have, you know, some really interesting people that are not necessarily in the crypto world, but are in the investment world. And the general advice is still pretty good. You just can't take it as gospel. You just have to kind of just distill what it is that's important from what they're saying. Like a lot of people criticize Warren Buffett these days, and I think Warren Buffett is a very interesting person with a fantastic like investment strategy. The thing is, you can't really take advice from Warren Buffett on Bitcoin itself or cryptocurrencies, because it's kind of like, asking your 90-year-old grandpa about TikTok.
Yeah.
They're going to say, it's a waste of time. But people are making money off of this.
And that's why I like Kevin OLeary so much. He was completely against cryptocurrency, and then he saw its potential, and now he's all gung-ho into it. Hopefully he doesn't end up like Mark Cuban, who got rug pulled last year.
Yeah.
Hey, it's going to happen, but that's why do your own research and don't trust all the hype is one of the main things that you need to know as someone looking to invest into cryptocurrency. And hopefully you didn't get caught up in the Luna.
Oh, no. No.
Are you a Bitcoin maximalist?
No. I believe that everything has its place. I believe that something like Bitcoin would have its place in a portfolio. I believe that you can have multiple layer ones, each serve a different purpose. And I think that everything can, that's more than just one chain can coexist together,
Kind of like how you have Google or Firefox or Safari, Internet Explorer.
Correct. You're going to have the popular ones that everybody kind of gravitates towards naturally, but there are going to be some very special use cases in particular. So, you have Ethereum and you have Solana. Solana is more centralized, whereas Ethereum is a little bit more decentralized. So depending on the type of transaction that you're going to be performing, if it's more of an everyday thing, maybe you'll use Solana because the centralization makes it a little bit quicker, a little bit faster because of that. Once it's decentralized, it has certain qualities that don't allow it to be as easy to use or as fast. But because of the decentralization, it also has certain qualities that allow transactions or qualities of the transactions that will benefit or though maybe that you're looking for. So you're not necessarily going to have one chain does it all, much like you don't buy an SUV and say, oh yeah, it's my race car now, I'm going to take it to the racetrack. No, it's not the most appropriate use case.
And working in finance, would you say that companies are interested in the cryptocurrency and the potential they offer, either from a technology standpoint or from a monetary gain? And obviously, this is just your personal opinion because this is not
financial advice. Only financial opinion for entertainment purposes only. I feel that companies are starting to wake up. But they have to be taken by the hand.
So are they waiting for regulation, or is it just still too speculative, like the futures markets?
I think it's mostly due to regulation, the lack of clarity. A lot of people don't want to get in on it because suddenly regulation comes out and it doesn't exactly work with their business model, and now they have to get out, and it's a loss of money. Whereas they can wait for regulation and then get in at an appropriate time while everybody's on board. I know something like MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy made a bold move and they're front running everybody else. And I think that's great for them.
They're basically a Bitcoin spot ETF without being registered as one because they hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And if you're buying into MicroStrategies, and Bitcoin's going up, their stock value is going to go up. Lo and behold, their assets are growing.
Oh yeah, the moment they announced that they were buying Bitcoin, their stock just skyrocketed. But it's one of those things where companies are taking a big risk if they're getting into the space now. Now I believe that at this point, it's prudent to consider the idea of having some exposure because you don't know where the space is going. You don't know where regulation is going to take it. And, just like investing, you the best gains are had when you come in before everybody else. Do you lose? Yes, sometimes you can lose.
But I wish we could all be 100%.
But, but what if you win, But that's a gamble that you have to take. If you're willing to risk it, obviously never risk more than you can afford to lose. So if you're in the space and you are not sleeping well at night, then you went in too hard. and you really need to revise your investment thesis.
And touching on that, what other advice would you give to people looking to get into cryptocurrency? Would you advise they get in now or wait until there's more regulation?
Well,
what have you learned?
I can't really legally advise, so I can only give my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is that if you are an investor who is looking for some possible high return for risk, it could be something that you may look into. Most people that are into that really high risk bracket,
mm-hmm.
they're already looking at it. If you're more on the conservative side, then I don't think it may be for you. Again, cryptocurrencies may not be for everybody.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like even just the average person, like, oh, I've heard about, like you when you were younger. Oh, I've heard about Bitcoin. I heard about this. Maybe they decide they want to dip their toes in the crypto waters. Like, what advice would you give those kind of people?
Again, not financial advice, only financial opinion. If you are willing to look at it from a long-term perspective, my opinion is that, if it's of interest to you, then, if you really want to dip your toes in the water, dip your toes in the water,
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, if you're not very well educated in the space, I would suggest that you kind of educate yourself first and understand what you're getting into, and don't get into things that you don't have conviction in. That, I feel, is the most important part. Only put money towards things that you have conviction in. Because if you don't, because somebody told you, hey, this sounds like a great idea, and you just blindly followed, when it turns down, you're going to be like, oh man, why did I get into this? And that's terrible. It gives you a bad feeling.
Yeah.
But if you get into something that you have conviction in, being stocks, being precious metals, being anything, get into things that you understand, that and you have conviction in. More like, again,
Mm-hmm.
Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett says invest in companies that can be run by an idiot, because eventually they will be. And that's sound advice.
So obviously, I assume you don't invest in Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or any of these other kind of meme tokens, because I would assume you don't have any long-term convictions in them.
I understood the whole point of Dogecoin started as kind of like a joke. It's joke coin, but it ended up having a life of its own. It ended up actually having a use case. Like, they realized that people were actually using it,
mm-hmm.
and they're like, well, let's at least use it for something productive. And they started using it for people wanting to donate money to like different charities or different movements, and it was used for that. It kind of died off, and then Dogecoin just became like another chain, like another.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say useless, but less of a use case. The only reason I have an allocation to Doge and Shiba Inu is because my nephew, he's like stuck on YouTube. He's like, yeah, you should buy Doge and you should buy Shiba. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna put a little bit of money in there to hold it for you. So when you're
I'm
older.
just gonna cut in. I would never recommend buying Doge or Shiba Inu. If you guys want to play around with some money, go for it. I know that CNBC loves talking about those two. You see people becoming multimillionaires. Trust me, they're multimillionaires because they sell their tokens to people like you who want to get in and try and replicate that success. So, in my opinion, I would highly recommend you stick to the top 10 in cryptocurrencies. Or, even better, just stick with Bitcoin. That's the king.
I feel that having diversification
mm-hmm.
is actually a good idea. you said, Bitcoin is king. Yes, absolutely. It's the oldest and most battle-tested chain. Do I feel that there are other chains that may have a good chance of moving forward? Yeah, usually they're usually the top 10. They don't always stay in the top 10, but if they're in the top 10, chances are they're going to stay towards the top.
Because they're the most popular. They got the most users. They got the most volume,
and that doesn't go away overnight.
Unless you're Luna.
But that Luna had their own self-created Black Swan event.
Yeah, there's gonna be a couple movies coming out about that.
Probably.
I'm sure. But what do you prefer? Cryptocurrency, stocks, bonds, or precious metals like gold, silver?
I believe a responsible portfolio is making reference to Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio, is to diversify. To put yourself into different classes that you feel are good fits and that work well off of each other. So when you have one that goes down, well, this one kind of holds it up. So you kind of have a balanced portfolio of things that are going to move forward together or counter each other, and never. I don't feel it's a good idea or prudent to make too heavy an allocation into one particular asset, because if you have the conviction in it and you want to play that game, you believe in the high risk. Okay, I'm not the one to tell. I just have to tell you legally that that's
like the Winklevoss twins, throwing all their settlement money into Bitcoin back in the day.
But that worked out great for them. Hindsight is 2020. Yeah. But back then they're like, hey, maybe this will work. All right, they didn't need the money because they didn't come from a poor family to begin with. They now had just a bunch of money to play with, so they just tossed a bunch of money into magic internet money, and voila, Hindsight is 2020. They did well, but what if it would have turned against them?
Yeah, exactly.
And we wouldn't know who they are anymore, other than the Facebook movie.
Yeah, and due to the volatility in cryptocurrency, do you ever think we'll start seeing like insurance companies or bigger hedge funds just parking money into specific cryptocurrencies as a store of value?
Mass Mutual has already allocated a small percentage, but I believe that once regulation comes in and once everybody's clear on where they stand, and that's going to cause volatility to go down, because now you're going to have bigger players in the space who don't move as quickly. So that's going to cause volatility to go down, and once volatility is down to a certain level, I believe that is the time when you're going to see some allocations from more the conservative companies, because right now the volatility is what really keeps them away.
Understandable.
Aside from regulation.
Because I think Bitcoin price right now is about 31,000, down from 69,000 just
Correct.
in November.
Correct.
If you're a big fund, losing over half your money, within the span of 6-7 months.
Your investors are not going to be happy.
Yeah. Awesome.
So.
Well, any other words of advice you'd like to give our viewers here? It's just anything you've learned?
I kind of self-taught, but before you get to investing, understand why you're investing. Understand why you want to put money in any investment. And whatever investments you want to put into, learn about them. Understand them. Don't just blindly follow along because somebody told you to. I believe it's in everybody's best interest to be a little bit more financially savvy with how things work before jumping in. Because if you start jumping in without knowing, can it work out? Yeah, it could work out if you have somebody who's like managing your money, who's smart enough. Okay.
Like this guy right here.
Listen, I'm not asking for that stuff. But no, just learn a little bit more about why you're investing. Understand yourself, why you decide to invest. I believe it's it's a smart play. It kind of hurts at the beginning because, yeah, that's money you could be using for taking a vacation or going to the beach or, hanging out with friends or, having a massive party. Yeah, great. But, $1 now invested into, something like an index fund could be worth 4 times as much in 20 years.
Or cryptocurrency.
I was recommended a book by somebody in the financial industry called The Excellent Investment Advisor. And the thesis is I don't really care what the market's going to do or what markets are going to do tomorrow, next week, 6 months from now, maybe a year from now. It doesn't really matter because if you're investing, it should be for long term. It should not be short term. If you're doing short term, that's called gambling. You're better off going to the casino betting on black or red or whatever you want to bet on.
Blackjack after this?
Sure, why not? I'll take your money. But no, I mean, just if you're willing to hold the money for long term, listen, the Dow Jones was at 6,000 points in 1990. Mm-hmm. It got to its peak last year of almost 37,000 points. It's 6x. Right now, it's more like a 5x. Mm-hmm. But still, look at everything that's happened in between. The markets
wars,
always,
famines.
Wars, the dot-com boom and bust, the 2008 financial crisis,
COVID.
COVID crash, everything that happened in between. And it always went up. Mm-hmm. So would it be reasonable to assume that given the track record that investment markets have, that it will continue? Well, yeah, I mean, for like 40, 50, 80 years, it's been giving good returns on average. That's not to say that there could be a year where you lose money. Yeah, mm-hmm. But the years that you win are far exceed the years that you don't.
Exactly. It's the law of average.
Correct. Like S&P can return 20% one year and then -2 the next.
Mm-hmm. And, cryptocurrencies, they've been beating the stock market. At least Bitcoin has.
They have the volatility, but it's a lot easier to move those markets because there's less money, so every dollar goes a lot further.
That's true. I mean, I do believe the cryptocurrency market is manipulated by some big players, but I also believe the same thing with gold, silver, the stock market. Those at least have more regulation compared to cryptocurrencies.
They're commodities. The regulations are kind of almost the same, but kind of different.
Yeah.
But when it comes to precious metals, yeah, I mean, there could be some manipulation, but if the price of gold was to go up suddenly, right? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden there's a huge demand. What happens? These companies start mining more gold. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of manipulation. You're increasing the supply into the market.
Yeah. A little bit different, but yeah, I agree. I mean, we did have the silver short squeeze last year.
Yeah.
So I wish, I've been buying silver for a long time, so I would love to have another short squeeze, but it just stays there, Finally turn a profit because silver's been going down. But thank you guys so much for watching. Ricardo, thank you so much for showing up here and answering my, random questions. Yeah. But if you guys want to know more, feel free to leave us a comment down below, and I'll make sure Ricardo can get to any questions that you may have. And
remember, not financial advice, just financial opinion.